T-minus 9 minutes and counting. Ground launch sequencer now controlling. Ground launch sequencer relays commands to the onboard computers, which report back then that those commands have been executed.
And OTC, that's complete. Copy.
The primary job, 1 second.
Go ahead, Ascent. Recorders are activated. Copy.
The onboard computers are called the Redundant Set Launch Sequencer, or RSLS, and they make the final checks at all of the Space Shuttle launch vehicle systems. Space Shuttle in that last half minute is checking itself. Getting ready for retracting now the orbiter access arm, which the crew uses for access. In an emergency, that can be moved back in around the orbiter. There. That's when the orbiter test conductor will give pilot Brian Duffy a go to. He'll set the which.
Start the reporters by the clock. Yes, copy.
The APUs start at 5 minutes. That's the last critical point at which we can hold if we need to sit there for any duration of time.
PLT, OTC. Go ahead, OTC. APU pre-starts, in work. And OTC PFT, pre-starts complete. We've got 2 gray talkbacks and 1 barber pole as expected on number 2. Copy that. APUs copy.
Auxiliary power units. Those APUs will be given a command to start at T-minus 5 minutes in about 20 seconds. Orbiter flight recorders as reported are operating. T-minus 5.
TLS go for orbiter APU start. Go ahead, OTC. Roger, APU start, in work.
And pilot.
Go ahead, OTC. Would you reconfigure heaters, please? That's in work.
Charlie Bolden being asked to reconfigure the orbiter heaters for launch. Pilot Brian Duffy is flipping 3 switches in the cockpit to start each of the APUs, and he'll report when that activation is complete.
Start is complete. 3 good ones, and the heaters are reconfigured. OTC copies.
Hydrazine now flowing from the tanks toward the APUs. Stand by for final range safety checks.
TLS go for third sequence 4.
Final check now of the orbiter's flight control elements. Standing by for gimbaling the 3 main engines. Rudder, ailerons, and speed brakes all have moved through a program test pattern, and they are verified ready to go. T-minus 3 minutes, standing by to gimbal the main engine. The main engines are now in the start position.
So for ET, LO2 pressurization.
Starting now to pressurize the liquid oxygen tank on the external tank. Atlantis now on internal power. Atlantis being powered by its onboard fuel cell.
PLPOTC.
Retraction of the gaseous oxygen vent hood now underway.
No unexpected errors. Roger, that's in work.
Pilot Brian Duffy reports that the action to clear the caution and warning memory system is now in work. He'll be reporting back.
Caution and warning's clear and no new messages.
That action reporting complete. No surprises there.
Close and lock your visors. And yeah, OTC. Flow. Good luck and Godspeed, Atlantis. Yeah, all right, thank you guys very much. We're let's go for ETLH2 pressurization.
Replenishment of liquid oxygen to the external tank is now being terminated.
1 minute, 30 seconds.
At T-minus 31 seconds, Atlantis' onboard computers. Space Shuttle has now been disconnected from all ground propellant loading systems. T-minus 1 minute and counting. Ground launch sequencer verifying that the main engines are ready for ignition. The heaters around the joints of the solid rocket boosters are being turned off. Residual hydrogen burn igniters have now been armed. They'll be fired at T-minus 10 seconds to burn off any residual hydrogen under the main engine nozzles. Sound suppression water system is being armed. T-minus 35, standing by for the handoff. T-minus 31, the handoff is complete. Onboard Atlantis computers now controlling. Booster hydraulic units have been started and a final steering check of the engine nozzle. Rapid speed brake in the launch condition. Sound suppression water system activated. T-minus 10, 9, 8. We're go for main engine start. 6, 5. Main engine start. 3, 2. Space Shuttle Atlantis on a mission to planet Earth.
Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Houston now controlling. Atlantis is rolling to the proper up, sound down position for its climb to a 57-degree inclination, 100. Three engines now throttling down as Atlantis prepares to pass the air of maximum aerodynamic pressure. Atlantis speed now 500 miles an hour, 600 feet. One minute since liftoff, altitude now 33,000 feet, downrange 3 nautical miles. Atlantis now traveling 1,023 miles an hour.
Atlantis, Houston, go at throttle up.
Roger, John, go at throttle up.
Capacity and operating well, good hydraulic systems, good electrical systems. Altitude 68,000 feet, downrange 8 nautical miles. Atlantis now traveling 1,705 miles an hour. One minute 50 seconds since liftoff. Atlantis now traveling 2,386 miles an hour, Flight controller standing by for burnout and separation of the solid rocket motors.
Atlantis, 2 engine Zaragoza.
Copy, John. 2 engine Zaragoza. Good SRB SEP. Good stable T-Micos.
And Atlantis, we copy. Performance.
Phenomenal performance.
Those calls indicate that Atlantis' first stage performance with the solid rockets was as planned, and Atlantis could now perform it. That would become necessary. However, to 225,000 feet, downrange 5,100 miles an hour. Time since liftoff, 3 minutes. Three engines continuing to operate well at 104%. Good hydraulic systems, good electrical systems. Altitude 300,000 feet, downrange 98 nautical miles. Atlantis now traveling 4,430 miles an hour. Time now liftoff plus 4 minutes.
Atlantis, negative return and press to ATO.
We copy, John. Press to ATO and negative return.
Those calls indicate that Atlantis has gained too much altitude and is traveling too fast to return to the Kennedy Space Center if that would become necessary, and also that Atlantis could press to a lower than planned but safe orbit on only 2 engines if that were to become necessary. However, all 3 engines continue to operate well at 104%. Good hydraulic systems, good electrical systems. Altitude now 351,000 feet, downrange 5,800 miles an hour.
Atlantis, press to MECO.
Copy, Houston. Press to MECO.
That call indicates that Atlantis could press to a normal main engine cutoff with only 2 engines operating if that were to become necessary. Time since liftoff now 5 minutes. Altitude 364,000 feet, downrange 219 nautical miles. Atlantis now traveling
Atlantis, Troop Zaragoza.
Troop Zaragoza, 109, John.
2 minutes 50 seconds to main engine cutoff. That call indicates that Atlantis could perform a transatlantic landing at Zaragoza, Spain on only 1 engine by throttling that engine. The engines continue to operate well at 104% of capacity. Good hydraulic systems, good electrical systems. Altitude now 370,000 feet.
Atlantis, single engine Zaragoza, 104.
Copy, single engine Zero, 104.
That call indicates that Atlantis could reach Zaragoza on only 1 engine by leaving that engine at 104% if that were to become necessary. However, all 3 continue to operate well. Good hydraulics, good electrical systems. Altitude 368,000 feet, downrange 353 nautical miles. Atlantis now traveling 9. Now 2 minutes away from main engine cutoff.
Atlantis, single engine press, 104.
We copy, single engine press, 104.
That call indicating that Atlantis could reach a normal main engine cutoff on only 1 engine if that were to become necessary. However, all 3 continue to operate well. Altitude 364,000 feet. Atlantis now traveling 1150 nautical miles. The vehicle passes through an area to limit the amount of stress on it to 3 times the force of gravity, altitude 360,000 feet, downrange 585 nautical miles. Atlantis traveling 14,300. Seconds to main engine cutoff. Atlantis now traveling 15,680 miles an hour, downrange 677 nautical miles, altitude 365,000 feet. Flight controllers now standing by for shutoff of the main engines. Booster officer confirms the normal shutoff of the main engines. Controllers now standing by for jettison of the external fuel tank from Atlantis.
Houston, Atlantis.
Roger, Atlantis. We see nominal MECO, no ohms 1 required.
Okay, the pride of the fleet concurs.